The morning sun poured across the open acres of Marcus's ranch, glinting off the steel bars of the gate he had installed just 2 years earlier. It wasn't an ordinary gate. It was reinforced, sturdy, and custom-made to stand against storms, livestock, and the occasional reckless driver who didn't respect property lines. But for all its strength, it hadn't been built with someone like Karen in mind. She was the president of the HOA that governed the small community neighboring his ranch, and for reasons only she seemed to understand, she treated his private property like a public shortcut. It started with little things. A tire track too close to his fence line, a car door slamming late at night near the corner of his property, headlights bouncing through the trees when he knew no guests were expected. Marcus, a retired military man who valued order and respect above all else, watched it with growing irritation. Then one morning he stepped out of his house and saw his ranch gate standing bent and scraped, one hinge almost torn out of the ground. Someone had rammed it. The cameras he had mounted along the drive told him everything he needed to know. Karen's shiny white SUV had plowed straight through, leaving her paint smeared across his gate like an uninvited signature. When Marcus confronted her, she didn't deny it. She didn't even look embarrassed. "You shouldn't have put a gate up in the first place," she said, hands on her hips, as though she were scolding a child. "This whole neighborhood shares the road. You're blocking access. My guests need to get through. I'm the HOA president. I can drive where I need." That was the moment Marcus realized he wasn't dealing with someone who would respect boundaries or logic. He could have called the sheriff and filed a report, but something about her smugness lit a fire inside him. He wasn't going to let her win by pretending his property belonged to her. He repaired the gate, reinforced the hinges, and installed a new set of cameras, ones she couldn't spot so easily. For a week, he thought maybe the message had sunk in. Then one evening, as he sipped coffee on the porch, he heard the squeal of tires. By the time he reached the gate, dust still hung in the air and his brand new steel was dented again. Karen's SUV had left another streak of white paint on the bars. She had done it again, bold as ever. The next morning, she actually had the nerve to come by and lecture him. "You're making things harder for everyone. This land doesn't belong only to you. You can't just shut people out." Marcus kept his cool, but behind his calm nods, he was already planning. Years of military service had taught him patience. He didn't strike without thinking. He didn't yell or threaten. He observed, calculated, and then executed with precision. And this time, he wasn't just going to fix the gate. He was going to set a trap Karen wouldn't see coming. He began quietly. First, he worked with a buddy from his unit who now ran a metal fabrication shop. Together they built a reinforced locking mechanism inside the gate, hidden from view but strong enough to withstand more than just an SUV's bumper. Then he dug shallow trenches just beyond the gate and filled them with loose gravel, knowing that if anyone sped through, their tires would spin uselessly. Finally, he set up a hidden camera system with motion detection, not just pointed at the gate but covering the whole drive. Karen wouldn't be able to claim ignorance or twist the story this time. But he wasn't finished. The real trap was psychological. He installed a second barrier just beyond the gate, a collapsible cattle guard designed to hold firm against vehicles but open on command for him. It looked like an ordinary part of the road, but the moment someone drove over it without clearance, the weight sensors would lock the vehicle's wheels in place. No damage to the car, but no way out without Marcus releasing it. It was perfectly legal, perfectly safe, and perfectly humiliating for anyone who tried to trespass. The first few days after installing his setup, Marcus watched the cameras like a hawk. He saw delivery trucks stop at the gate, read the private property sign, and turn around. He saw neighbors drive by the long way, as they were supposed to. But no sign of Karen. For almost 2 weeks, she stayed away. Then one Saturday afternoon, he heard it again. The roar of an engine, too fast for the gravel road, too careless for someone who belonged there. Marcus didn't even flinch. He stayed on his porch, sipping his drink, watching the screen of his phone as the cameras fed live footage. Karen's white SUV barreled straight toward the gate, headlights glaring, as if she believed sheer momentum would make the world bend to her will. The gate didn't budge this time. Her SUV slammed against it with a crunch that sent her hood crumpling. The airbags didn't deploy, but the sound of her horn blaring in frustration made Marcus chuckle. He could see her through the camera, pounding the steering wheel and cursing. Then, furious, she reversed and tried again, this time making it through the gate's bent bars, but only barely. She didn't notice the gravel. She didn't notice the cattle guard waiting for her. She shot forward, and within seconds, her SUV's tires locked tight as if the road itself had grabbed hold of her. She was trapped. Marcus stood slowly, stretched, and walked down the drive. By the time he reached the gate, Karen was out of her car, shouting at the top of her lungs. "You can't do this. You're blocking me in. This is illegal. I'll have the whole HOA after you." Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply pointed to the sign by the gate, "Private property. No trespassing. Violators will be recorded." Then he held up his phone, showing her the live feed. "Karen," he said evenly, "you drove through my gate 3 times. You damaged my property. You ignored every warning. Now you're going to sit there while I call the sheriff. Or," he let the pause hang in the air, letting her fume. "You can pay for the damage, apologize, and promise this will never happen again." Her face turned red, then pale. She opened her mouth to argue, then glanced at the cameras. For the first time, Marcus saw something new in her eyes, doubt. She realized she had no way to spin this. No board vote, no neighborhood gossip, no smug dismissal could erase the evidence. And as she stood there, trapped in more ways than one, Marcus felt the satisfaction of knowing the trap had worked. Not just the steel and sensors, but the lesson she could no longer escape.